Good afternoon here from Uganda, and welcome to the Uganda Diaspora Show. My name is Lynn, Komugisha, and today I want to look at a very interesting conversation, one that I hoped would have even earlier, but it's never too late. The UNAA conversions, marketing Uganda abroad amidst all the challenges and of course, political divisions that are always characterized by, that are always a character of these conversions, rather. So I want to just head right into it. Albert, I'll start with you. The recent UNAA conversion, people were, calling upon each other to trust each other, to come together and mobilize funds and mobilize ways of developing the country. What so far? So you have been part of UNAA before. Where is the problem, and perhaps what ought to be done better?
Thank you, Lynn, and good morning where you are. Actually, good afternoon where you are. It's morning here. Good morning, Miriam. And thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be on this show again. I've always emphasized that these shows are important. If anything, they do help us at least keep the conversation going and to understand our two communities. So to your question, I think it's not a problem. I wouldn't characterize it as a problem. It's more of a challenge, and it's, again, as a result of our misconceptions, our misunderstanding of each other. And that's why I appreciate these shows. We get to talk and kind of enlighten each other. UNAA conventions. I think I've said this before. If I was in Uganda and I was in politics advising the president of Uganda, I would say, keep an eye on a very influential, elite diaspora community in North America. But it wouldn't be the eye that the government has been keeping on this community. And we've talked about this several times. The eye I would be keeping on this community would be understanding the needs of this community, understanding the makeup of this community, their aspirations, their values, their interests. We left Uganda for different reasons at different times. But I can tell you, we have come to North America and we have established ourselves as a community. We're not Americans. And I dare say we're not typical Ugandans either. We have formed a hybrid culture that has its interests, its values. For the most part, when we are at these conventions and the government of Uganda sends emissaries to us, they look at us as Ugandans. And the conversation is usually how best to separate us with our money. Can you come invest here? Can you donate to this cause? It's the same conversations we have with our families. They never, when my siblings or my relatives are asking me to pay school fees for their kids, they never consider that I have kids of my own. They don't even, that calculation does not even go into they don't think I have a family to feed. They don't even bother to know that. It's the same way how Uganda treats us. When the government sends delegations here, the Nankabiruas and the others that I won't mention, it's that conversation. Can you guys come and invest? It's like we don't have any values. Investing, I'll start with there, since it's my area of expertise, I'll start there. Investment is an emotional action. If you don't share my values, I won't invest in your company. So how does the government of Uganda bridge that gap? We can go back. I think I can stop there and then let Lynn chime in. But we can go back on our earlier conversations of service, again, understanding us as a community. What is in it for us? And what are our values? Okay, if we're sitting and we're not agreeing and we see these high levels of corruption, we see mismanagement, we see things falling apart, I'm thinking, I'm going to hold on to my money. Yeah, I might not make the killing that other people are making and who are investing in Uganda, but investment, again, is an emotional action. Some of us are not that, we're not gamblers. And I'm not suggesting by any means that whoever is investing in Uganda is a gambler. No, I'm just saying some of us are risk averse. We don't want to put our money where I buy a piece of land and then tomorrow somebody chases me off the land and I go to court and I can't get a hearing. And the next time I say they're giving me stories. Oh, somebody came with a pickup of military people and they put up a fence and now they've built a building on my land. I don't want to invest in that kind of environment. And those are some of the things that the diaspora community have been facing. A lot of of our people have lost lands. And some of them have been through family members. So maybe it's the families that we come out of, but mostly it's the lack of the properly functioning judiciary, corruption, high levels. Those are some of the values that we no longer have. Okay, we are here. Yes, we should understand Uganda, but some of us have left a long time ago. We are used to a different kind of system. Okay, you can go to a courthouse anywhere in the US today. I guarantee you, if there's a case of land, I mean, I don't know what I can bet for you. You usually never hear of a case of land, because if you're buying a property, there's a titling company, and if somehow you lose your money, then they're on the hook because they didn't find out what was they didn't do a good background. You don't see courts clogged up over issues of land. And you might say, oh, maybe it's Africa, we have traditional lands, like Milo land. It's actually no, because years back, we didn't have that either. This is a new creation of the current administration that we have these issues. So again, what do I ask? And again, I characterize your question as a challenge, not a problem. It's not insurmountable. The government of Uganda, through its emissaries here, have to understand that we are a unique community. We have aspirations. We have different values that are neither American nor Ugandan, hybrid. We've picked the best, or some of us have picked the best of Uganda and picked the best of America, and we've formulated this kind of unique culture. Understand us. But until now, and I hope this changes, the relationship that the government of Uganda, and by the government, I don't just mean the people in the State House and administrators, I even mean our family members, because they are also part of the government. So the relationship so far has been how to best separate us from our money. Come invest, come donate to this cause and that cause. Oh, you're Ugandan, how can you talk to us like that? You're Ugandan, how can you not understand that? Well, it takes two, and I think there should be a concerted effort to understand our interests, our values, and our aspirations as a unique community. I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Albert. Ambassador Henry Mayega, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you today. Once again, we are looking at the UNAA conversions, marketing Uganda abroad, but also looking at the divisions therein, of course, they're not only political, most of them are even individual problems here and there. But we're trying to understand how we can leverage on the diaspora people, the Uganda diaspora, and development. Now, Ambassador Henry Mayega, the question here would be, we have been looking, and most times you have actually told us how much remittances come into the country through the diaspora, and it is very commendable, really. It's a lot of money that comes in, and we're trying to understand how can our government, recognize the diaspora as an important resource for development. How can we do that? Now, if you could react also to Albert's comments, he said there's lack of proper functioning entities that can help bring the diaspora community together to put everything in order. They need to separate diaspora from their money, and this really goes back to that particular question. When will our government recognize the diaspora as an important resource for development?
Well, thank you very much, Lynn, for the opportunity. I'm afraid I came on board a little late because when the machines didn't work out well at the beginning, I delved into so many other things. But I'm happy to be part of the panel this afternoon. And of course, the subject of UNAA and the rest of the conventions is extremely important. I have been associated with UNAA for a couple of years, and I've attended the conventions in the US in various cities. I don't want to name names of the cities where I've been in the US as far as those UNAA conventions are concerned. And right now, of course, in the UAE, we have a diaspora association that brings together Ugandans who live in this country. And in the end, in the last week of October, there is going to be a convention of Ugandans here in the UAE, specifically on October 29th up to 30th. It's going to be a two-day convention. And therefore, these conventions are extremely important because apart from, of course, talking about cultural things, cultural rejuvenation, and so on, various groups that do exist that feed into these, for instance, when it comes to the UNAA, I know that there are all sorts of groups, the Baganda, the Basoga kind of things, and quite a couple of other groups, all of them feeding into the convention of UNAA. Extremely important for purposes of cultural rejuvenation. And of course, when it comes to the remittances, yes, this is part of the subjects, the subjects that I have always enjoyed talking about. The US, of course, diaspora sends quite substantial amounts of US dollars to the economy. Here in the UAE, over 200 million US dollars per year in terms of remittances are sent to Uganda, and therefore these are definitely very helpful. So in terms of remittances, extremely important. In terms of, I know, for instance, UNAA has been financing quite a number of projects in Uganda, and that's commendable. There are also, of course, monies which are sent to their respective families back in Uganda. That too is extremely important because it adds to the national economy. So put together, all these things are extremely important. Diasporas are in various countries. Unfortunately, the Yoweri Museveni administration has charged the missions abroad with the responsibility of mobilizing diaspora. Of course, there are quite lots of gaps that we need to fill up. Albert has been talking about quite a number of them, but for me, I don't want to talk in the negative because there are so many good things which are happening because of involving the diaspora in the development of the country. So that responsibility is extremely important for the missions abroad, so that the diaspora can be mobilized to take part in the development of the country. Having said that, I just wanted to mention that it's not true that the government has not done something. Maybe, probably, much more needs to be done. And I just want to consider that as work in progress. But otherwise, there is, for instance, a desk in the President's office that deals with diaspora issues. And I know it for a fact that Abe Walusimbi is one of the people who have been charged with the responsibility in the president's office to make sure that the diaspora interests are taken care of. So there is a desk in the president's office that is concerned with the diaspora issues. Foreign Affairs has promoted what used to be an office. Foreign Affairs Ministry has promoted what used to be an office in charge of diaspora issues to directorate. And so that shows everybody how important the diaspora aspect is important for the Yoweri Museveni administration. Parliament has also got, the Parliament of Uganda has got a desk that has been given the responsibility of making sure that diaspora issues are addressed. Of course, there are quite a number of issues, as I've said before, that we need to fill up those gaps in order to make sure that people who are in diaspora participate in the development of the country as much as possible. So I just want to restate the fact that the government definitely is doing everything humanly possible to make sure that the diaspora brought on board in as far as developing the country is concerned. It's a unique, of course, community. I've heard Albert talk about it. The diaspora are a unique community. They earn from their being abroad, and those resources they earn, part of them are definitely recouped back into the economy. And as a result of that, of course, the diaspora is taken as a special community. It's work in progress, in other words, in as far as what the government can do to make sure that the diaspora takes part in the development of the country as much as possible. For the time being, I just want to stop there.
All right, thank you very much, Ambassador. Miriam, you've heard from Albert and Ambassador Mayega, but we understand that for us to have this conversation, a lot has been going on. And you have perhaps, seen what has been going on. You have encountered most of these challenges. And we have, over the years, talked about how we can, bring the diaspora on board, especially in a concerted way, for us to have it move in tandem with the development of the country. Many challenges come up all the time, but what is the actual problem? Why can't we have a united diaspora and then one that works together with the government for development?
Hi everyone. It's nice to have you back, and yeah, we've discussed this topic for a couple of times, Lynn, and why can't we have a united diaspora? Maybe the united diaspora might be because we don't yet have, we have united interests, but we don't have like united instruments which would bring the people together. For instance, the conventions used to unite people until the politics separated us. And then, yeah, mostly the politics. Albert said rightly said that the diaspora community is a hybrid, is, people who are Ugandan but extra, they are Ugandan but have also other interests and they are other citizens of other countries. So how do you bring their eyes back to their motherland? How do you get their focus back home? I think the ambassador, the issues you mentioned, it's very easy to roll out. We have this desk, we have this department, we have this. But if we go back, how are they functioning? Are they facilitated to do their job? Do people in offices know what to do? How do we unite the people? We unite people with united interests. If, say, you have like an investment vehicle which can unite people, people will come together to work with that which is there. And in that process, you are uniting people. Unite people with interests, like Albert said, people have had different values. now they are looking for that in Uganda, for instance. A society which is corrupt-free, maybe it doesn't have to be totally corrupt-free, but it should be working. It should be predictable. It should be consistent. Investment is a long-term project. If, say, I want to invest in a land, can I be sure that I'm going to be having it 20 years later? Are there processes in Uganda which can ensure that? So what we see and what we hear are not compatible. Like you hear, oh, come and invest, but where are you going to invest? How are you going to invest? How are you sure that your investments will be taken care of? And as for that visions back in diaspora, I hope the ambassador would talk to that. For instance, we last in our discussion, we had the NUP convention. That's what we discussed 2 weeks ago. And those people are uniting for a different cause. For them, they are looking at Uganda differently. How, for example, are you going to convince those people to invest in Uganda? The politics shouldn't be a deterrent to investment. Actually, it should be an attraction to investment, because politics is management of the economics, basically. But today, our politics are a deterrent to investment. So I'm throwing around all these issues. I hope the ambassador would just respond to some of them. But the biggest issue now is that we have a polarized community of Ugandans in diaspora, whether it's in the UAE, where he is based, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in USA. And yet we are missing out on the much needed resources. I used to say that Ugandans are developing more than the country. You know, like the Ugandans are more enlightened than the government. The government is so laid back or uninformed about the current trends and the people's interests that it's taking it forever to catch up. For example, what are the people's values today in Uganda? The government is like so backward. It's, if you talk to anybody in an embassy or commission or whatever in Uganda, you just see what we are talking about. It's like you're getting someone from the 20th century to work in the 21st century. They are so out of touch with life, with the necessities of the people today. And also that's a big challenge. So we have so many desks working on diaspora and nothing attending to diaspora issues. So all those things, and then the political polarization, we really need to work so much to bridge those gaps. And I think, as we'll be discussing, we just have to look at how to resolve some of these issues, because our interest, all of us, is to see the diaspora community, which has gained awareness from their exposure. They have resources, they have education, they have skills. How do we transfer that? How do we harness that and have it and send it back home to develop Uganda?
Well, thank you, Miriam. You mentioned very interesting facts there about how our people, the diaspora people, are more, actually, particularly diaspora people, are more advanced than the country they come from. And I keep asking myself, when you go out there, do you forget about your country? Albert, I am coming back to you. Do you forget about your country, or is it that the community is different, so you tend to morph into that community, and because back home things are different, you do not want to transfer that back home? Because there's a challenge. The government has over the years, said that it is hard to mobilize the diaspora people because you people don't want to come back home. You people are not interested back home. And the other day they were calling for dual citizenship, which you do not want. Okay, so should we start from there? Should we try to understand that your level of patriotism is wanting?
Absolutely not. And I say that from even I'll just give you an example. Last evening, I was on a Zoom call like this, with community leaders in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia community. And the purpose of that call was to organize our 60th Independence Day anniversary community picnic that will include a soccer match. This is us, Ugandans, not the embassy. Okay, and
that is just you, because you guys are you're organizing yourselves that side.
I know, but I'm telling you. So when somebody says we're less patriotic, then what are we celebrating? Why am I spending 2 hours on the Zoom call trying to organize an Ugandan independence if I don't value Uganda, I don't know Ugandan culture, I don't care? Why would I do that? So it's not true. This is the kind of stuff that they feed State House. Okay? For their interest to get a dime here and there. This is the garbage they feed the president. Or Ugandans in America don't love Uganda. Really? We participate in Uganda, in Ugandan activities here. We participate in the development of the country, although at an individual level, yes, we have lacked the cohesion that maybe would be visible to say, oh, Ugandans in America have built a dam. We haven't done that. And it's not for lack of trying. And part of that, the government should take responsibility. I don't agree with the ambassador when he says that the government is lifting heaven and earth or doing everything humanly possible. I don't believe that. And I can give him a simple fact. I live about 12 miles away from the embassy of Uganda in Washington, D.C. It's staffed by 9 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 people. An ambassador that was sent here, approved by Parliament of Uganda, has not come. And to my understanding, it has to do with some budgetary issues. So a post that is supposed to be to the #1 country in the world, yes, the US is still the superpower, #1, does not have the ambassador, is staffed by 9 people, but somehow is supposed to cater for a population of 150,000 Ugandans. How does that level with we're doing everything humanly possible? It does not. If you go to some KCC office, you go to some little office that the NRM cares about, if you just go and then in some district where there's a by-election, I guarantee you'll find that you find more staff, more government officials in that area or in that little district in the far flings of northern Uganda or eastern Uganda than you'll find here trying to serve a population that the government keeps saying is very valuable. So those two don't level. So I disagree with the ambassador on that we're not being treated like an important community. They say it, they give us lip service, but it doesn't work that way. Then on the other part are the divisions you're talking about. The divisions that you're talking about in our community, a good chunk of them have been fueled by NRM as a party. Okay, so we have elections in UNAA. And it's clear. I mean, I appreciate the new people. I'm not a member, but I appreciate the new people that they formed their organization. They have their convention where they go ahead and talk about their party issues and whatever they want to do, democratization issues, whatever they do. I haven't attended any of their conventions. They've done 2 so far. I appreciate that approach. The NRM should do that as well. But they have not done that. What they have decided to do is take over a community organization. When you take over a community organization, you're polarizing the community. I know that for a fact. As you remember, I did run for UNAA vice presidency last year. I saw these politics. Some of them so dirty, some of them so scary. The same stuff that you'd see in Uganda, except without the bullets and the guns and yeah. I even remember sharing an anecdote here saying I was so scared for my family that I actually had to literally go rent another hotel blocks away to separate them from the unit because I was scared somebody would do something to my kids. It's that kind of polarization. It's that kind of scaredness that we're dealing with, and most of it is fueled and funded by the NRM. They have decided that they want to take over this community organization. And because of that, for years that they have been on that campaign, they've run it to the ground. And maybe that is calculated, or maybe it's by default, but it's happening. Okay? Decent people have kept living and living the organization to the point where at some point now it's like a party circus. Yes, they had a very good convention in San Francisco. And by the way, I'm still a member. I'm still a member in good standing. Okay? But we try to do stuff. I can tell you I'm a member of their Constitutional Review Commission. We spent 3 years with a group of doctors, lawyers, university professors, and we put down a reform document. We sent it to them to approve, and I don't even want to talk about it. I don't know what happened, but we didn't have a quorum at the AGM to pass these reforms. No, it's not that you didn't have a quorum. There was no, that was not something that either the funders of the convention in Uganda or the people in leadership wanted to happen. Because these are reforms that will stop some of these fights in the community. They didn't want to see them happen. So I would ask the ambassador, and he's right. We've been to several conventions together. We met in Chicago when I was running. We had a spirited conversation. I would like him to take the message to the government to say, hey, it's important for the NRM to have a presence in the diaspora community in North America. But have your own organization. Create a Uganda National Resistance Movement diaspora chapter, have elections, have your own conventions. Let those who want to come and join you. But to take over a community organization and fuel these constant fights and have this as an extension of the broken politics of Uganda is not going to be a fruitful leap from there to the development project that we're talking about that we're not having. Again, the ambassador talked about desks. I will echo what Miriam has said. If I had the power, I'll shut all of them down because all of them are not working. Okay, if they were working, some of the things that we keep screaming about would have been addressed. The government, you can't convince me that the government of Uganda does not have money. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. If you can have these political desks, one in the parliament, one in the president's office, where's the evaluation report from them? I'm an analyst. What we say, our mantra is, what you value, you measure. Ask the ambassador to give you those measurements to say, hey, since this office has been in place, led by so and so, these are the achievements this office has had. There won't be anything like that because we don't do the value for money evaluation on these the political entities. So and so is in there. So and so is there. Do you know how long Simbi has been leading this effort in Uganda? What are his achievements? What has he done? So these are political offices, they are patronage offices, they don't help us. We can talk all we want about them, but they don't help us as a community. They don't move. They don't. The thing is, what really saddens us is the government is not gaining anything, and the community is not gaining anything. So we're kind of all on a lose-lose kind of thing. The government of Uganda's image in the US, and I can only speak of the US, as the ambassador Mayega may admit or not, is really, the US does not really have a good relationship with Uganda. It does not. That's a fact. If somebody wants to arrest me for it, please. That's a fact. It does not have a good relationship with the US. And part of that is directly attributed to what happens in Uganda and your community here. Because I said this sometime back, we are the ambassadors of Uganda. It's not a cliche. I really mean it. When I'm sitting and I'm talking to the Deputy Secretary of Labor and we're discussing budgets and how it's going to be presenting to the President's office, my accent is going to come out. And she's going to ask me, where are you from? This is a true story. And my first answer is going to be Uganda. I was born and raised in Uganda. then whatever impression that I give of Uganda in that moment, I'm Uganda's ambassador. Now I'll have to do that, and then you add on what CNN is reporting on Uganda. That's directly, those two factors are why the government of Uganda does not really have a good working relationship with the Biden administration. Your sons and daughters in their diaspora work for the Biden administration. Whatever they tell their officials, their supervisors, is the impression they give of Uganda. These things, this is not rocket science. Put that, add on to the understaffing at the embassy. If you have 9 people, that means your ambassadors and your representatives are not visible in the community. They're not attending functions on Capitol Hill. They're not attending functions in the community. They're not visible because they're few. If you do that, then you've left the image of Uganda to be sold by the sons and daughters of Uganda, whom right now you're really not caring about. And whenever the ambassador could attend, or whatever function the deputy ambassador now could attend, or some official here, and they're trying. Okay, I'm not one to say, as Ambassador Mayega said, I'm not the one to say, oh, everything is lost. No, you should see how hard these people work. Even as we speak right now, there's an expo going on at the Ugandan embassy of the cultural thing. They have the Ankole Bianzis, the Toro things, the Bunyoro. They're doing a great job. They're really trying. But they are inadequately funded. They are inadequately staffed. Now they don't even have their leader. And they don't know the politics going on and all that kind of stuff. All I had was some budget issues, because I know the ambassador was approved by parliament. So it's no longer, she is the ambassador to the US, but she's not here. Okay. So those are the kind of things that for some of us look at and say, oh, I don't believe that they care about us as a community, or they care as much as they should. And the fact that this when, and again, I've said this to Ambassador Mike, when I don't do politics, I give you the facts. I say it as it is. Let the chips fall where they might. Okay, this is not politicking. I'm just saying, I'm giving you facts. They're visible. You can go to the embassy. You can call on a Monday and see how long it takes for somebody to answer your phone call. You can email them and see how long they take to respond. So those are not things that show that the Ugandan government is interested to the level that it should be in our community. They are interested to have a base of the NRM in here, because a few years ago it was a nope. Now they're coming with a vengeance. I saw them in pictures, because I was not able to attend San Francisco, but I saw them pictures. There was even a table of Mohozi 2016 and NRM and T-shirts and stuff. I'm like, really? This is the level? This is what you are coming to sell us? No. Ask an ambassador, maybe can tell us. Was there a desk equivalent to the Mohozi desk? Was there another one that said, this is the diaspora issues desk, come here and tell us? No. Yes, they do send us some services. There were people doing IDs, but
all right,
the government can do more.
All right. Thank you so much. It's so much that you have mentioned, and it's very key that we take note. Ambassador here represents himself, and some views of his perhaps are from the government, but he shares what he knows and what is available on his desk. Now, Ambassador Henry Mayega, your reactions before I can ask our next question.
Oh, thank you very much, Lynn. Of course, just a mouthful of things. The first one is that, of course, Albert is talking about the lack of a good relationship between Uganda and the US. I don't think that is true. Of course, Uganda is a sovereign country, and it works with everybody. The recent, of course, you remember what happened with due respect, of course, to the kinds of things surrounding Ukraine, Uganda abstained from the taking a side in the vote on Ukraine and so on and so forth, because it is soon to become taking over the chairing of the non-aligned movement, and therefore we try as much as possible to balance all those powers. And so, but the point to make here is that Uganda is a sovereign country, and therefore we cannot accept a situation where any other country, superpower or no superpower, dictates to Uganda how we should behave politically and so on and so forth. We take a very independent line, and nobody can dictate to us. But I also don't want to imagine that the relationship between Uganda and the US has hit the rocks, because the two countries still transact business, political business, as well as economic business. Yes, there might be some points of departure between the two countries. That one is normal. I mean, even the allies of the US, for instance, in Europe, at some point in time, have had disagreements, especially when it comes to economics. So Uganda is a sovereign country. We try as much as possible to balance our relationship with each and every country that is a member of the UN. That is number one. Number two, of course, Albert is talking about numbers in the embassies. Yes, a number of embassies, at least those which I have served before, because I was in China from 2015 to 2020, we had 1 + 7, which made the number 8 of staff who come from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kampala, plus, of course, a lot of local staff, which took the number in Beijing to over 20. But in as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it is the numbers that matter in terms of attracting investment, because you know the volumes of foreign direct investment that we attracted from China to Uganda, to the extent that up to now, China is the biggest provider of foreign direct investment in Uganda. Almost all the projects, big projects that are happening in Uganda, including the expansion of Entebbe Airport, the Entebbe Express Highway, and quite a number of others, have been done or are being done by companies from China. And therefore, in as far as I'm concerned, numbers that are stationed at the various diplomatic missions of Uganda abroad are not the issue. Here where I am in the UAE, we have similar numbers. We are still 8. And recently, during the Expo 2020 Expo of Dubai, we attracted over $4 billion in terms of foreign direct investment, including things like the establishment of 6 tea factories that are going to produce tea in the country. And the volume of that investment that is going to be attracted from the UAE, with our numbers of 8 staff from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I think we are still doing miracles. So you don't have to have the big numbers in order to attract investment that goes to Uganda. I don't think, in my view, that it's the numbers which matter as a result of attracting foreign direct investment. So numbers at the diplomatic missions, yes, are still small, but we are doing miracles because investment still finds its way to Uganda. Now, of course, Albert is also talking about the NRM taking over UNAA. I mean, that has been the practice, just like we see what happens in the universities back home, that each party presents a candidate, and that's how democracy, in my view, actually works out. Each party provides a candidate to become president. For instance, when it comes to Makerere University, we've seen all parties sponsoring candidates for the position of president of the guild. And I've seen it also happen in UNAA. The years I've been associated with those elections of the UNAA, that parties actually sponsor candidates. So, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't see anything real out of the ordinary that the NRM would sponsor a candidate to stand for president of UNAA, right? I think what, in my view, should be done, if people feel that that is a mistake, is probably to revise or review or revisit the constitution of UNAA, so that those elections, what governs the elections, in as far as sponsoring candidates is changed, so that we know it for a fact that if somebody is sponsored by a political party, whether it is NUP, whether it is DP, whether it is UPC, and all the others, including FDC, sponsoring a candidate becomes illegal in as far as the constitution of UNAA is concerned. If that happens, of course, it will be abrogation of the norms of constitutionality, and it will be definitely something that pulls back the aspirations of many as far as democracy is concerned, because in my view, people should be free to belong to political parties that they wish to. If you gag them, I can assure you, Albert, that there will be quarters that are going to complain about that actually UNAA has now stopped parties from sponsoring anybody. You'll definitely have noises from a different quarter. At the moment, you yourself, you're seeing that as a mistake, but of course there will be many others who will feel probably that is a mistake. And that is definitely a travesty of democracy. I want to continue arguing that the government definitely is doing everything humanly possible. I don't think it is true that the government is doing nothing in as far as mobilizing the diaspora in order for them to take part in the development of Uganda. Just a couple of weeks ago, I myself, although I knew that the leadership of, for instance, of the diaspora in the UAE are heavily NUP, but I still went for that meeting and made sure that we had an event at which we established chapters in the various Emirates. Specifically, we launched one in Dubai, because Dubai is one of the Emirates in the UAE, and the rest is history. And so I could see at that launch really people coming together, irrespective of their being people from various political shades of opinion. Some were from, of course, the NRM, others were from NUP, others were from FDC, but these people agreed to work together for the benefit of the country. And how I wish that UNAA also does the same, that after all, you are not going to gag people and make sure that they belong to one shade of political opinion in order for them to participate in the activities of the diaspora, but rather have unity in diversity, irrespective of whether somebody belongs to DP, NUP, NRM, FDC, ANT. For me, I don't look at these things that way. Here, when we are serving the Ugandan community in the UAE and elsewhere where I've served as a diplomat, we serve everybody, irrespective of where they are coming from in as far as politics is concerned. So it is extremely important for us to realize that, yes, unless we agree that from now on, the diaspora should ban anybody who comes from a political party vying for a position of responsibility. If we agree on that, fine, I wouldn't have an issue. But as far as these political parties are concerned, as long as we haven't revisited the constitutions that govern these diaspora communities in the various countries, it is going to remain so, that actually each political party sponsors a candidate. And whoever wins, then they carry the day. They carry the day. But if people wish that those constitutions of those various diaspora communities should really stop parties from sponsoring candidates for the presidencies of those communities, then that should be understood in that way. Now, the challenges of these diasporas, of course, there are many. There are many, and that's why I said at the beginning of this conversation that it's not going to be easy for us to prescribe a particular medicine to these challenges, but rather to agree in principle that yes, even if there are challenges, the mechanisms of addressing those challenges of the diaspora are addressed. And we can only do that if we can work together, rather than building, some kind of what the Baganda would call Urukonko between ourselves, people who live in the diaspora, and the government. We can still work together, irrespective of the fact that we disagree politically. For me, I don't see a problem. In fact, whenever I go to a group and everything that they talk about is agreed on by everybody, I would describe that kind of a group as one of morons, because naturally we are not supposed to agree on everything. So this unity and diversity, in as far as I'm concerned, is extremely important. In other words, it is an inbuilt mechanism of creating checks and balances so that we can realize the objectives for which we stand as diaspora. So for me, I don't see a problem. I mean, people can come from NUP, they can come from DP, they can come from NRM, FDC, ANT, and the rest of the political persuasions that we have in Uganda. For as long as we continue to remember that there is a country called Uganda, our motherland, that is extremely important and which is bigger than any one of these political groupings that we have, so that we actually work for that country. I am happy to say that the remittances continue actually to flow into the country, irrespective of our different political persuasions and political disagreements, that these remittances actually continue to flow into our country. Whether we call them remittances, whether we call them investments, I still see substantial amounts of money coming from the various diasporas. And as I've said, as of now, right now as we speak, over $1 billion are remitted back home. In the UAE, where I'm stationed, we remit over $200 million. And for me, that is a plus in as far as our economy is concerned and as far as the development of our country is concerned. So irrespective of all these things, whether you're NUP, and we have quite a huge presence of NUP in the UAE, people continue to send remittances back home for the benefit of our country. And I think that's how we are going to develop our country. Thank you very much.
I wanted to respond to the ambassador. One, by highlighting that this is exactly how I started this conversation, by saying the government of Uganda and its officers and emissaries like the ambassador need to understand our values. What he just narrated regarding UNAA and the NRM and the freedom of our association is exactly what I'm talking about. That shows that the ambassador is talking in the Ugandan realm and still considers us as a diaspora group in North America as part of them. But I said, unless I think he hadn't come on, we are a unique community. We have values from Uganda and we have values in the places that we've immigrated to in North America here. And those values make us a unique community. For example, UNAA is not a Ugandan organization. It's not. It is an organization for the Ugandans, or for the people of Ugandan descent and their offspring in North America. It's our community organization, not yours, not NUPs, not NRMs. So for the ambassador to say, oh, these elections should be like Makerere, they cannot be. It's registered in the state of Massachusetts. Okay. In the state of Massachusetts, we said we would be apolitical, non-partisan, non-discriminatory. So you cannot now go ahead and say, oh, no. NUP can sponsor a candidate. NRM can sponsor a candidate. It's impossible. It's against the law. So for us, again, like I said, you are looking at us in the prism of Uganda. You're looking at through that lens, but we're not. We're a unique community. No, we actually follow the law. It may not matter to you sitting in the Emirates or in Uganda. It may not, because that's what happens in Uganda. The laws are there, but some people follow them, some people choose not to. That's not what we do here. We are a unique community. We're actually law-abiding citizens. So we cannot have an NRM-sponsored candidate as a UNAA president. We cannot. It's against the law. And at some point, the law will catch up with this kind of stuff. And when you talk about sponsorship, how do you sponsor? You cannot sponsor, the NRM secretariat cannot hold a bag of money and give it to a UNA candidate in the US for campaigns. That's against the law. It's called the Foreign Agents Registration Act. If you want to be an agent of a foreign government, you are required to come and register and do that in the open so they can see how much money you're bringing in, where you're spending it, and how you're spending it. That's the law. So when you say, oh, they're free to sponsor their candidate, how? Sponsor them with what? So whatever money, dark money that has been coming in into UNA to sponsor NRM candidates is illegal. And for some of us law-abiding citizens, look at you now. And again, it's not your fault. This is what I'm talking about. You guys have to learn our value system. It's different from yours. It's even different from the American one. We are unique. First of all, we don't like to commit crimes because we're scared of going to jail. Okay? Some people in Uganda don't do it. They're untouchables. Some Americans here don't care. Some of them say, you know what, if I go to jail, I go to jail. We are unique. Okay? Ugandans, some people are untouchables. They don't go to jail. Here in America, there are people who have grown up in the system that going to jail is like going to the grocery store. We're neither. We're in the middle. We're saying, no, this should stop. Uganda cannot fund candidates to run a community organization that is a registered non-profit organization that says it's not political, that said it's not non-discriminatory. And again, I will offer a simple advice. NUP has done it. You guys can do it. Have your own organization. I don't mind that somebody who wants to lead UNA is affiliated with NUP. Okay? I don't mind that they're affiliated with DP. That's fine. Okay? But as long as they come to UNA and say, hey, I'm offering myself here. I am not sponsored by my party. I'm here to serve. That's what we want. And that's what is consistent with our values. And that's what is consistent with the law under which the organization is registered. If we don't do that, as God is my witness, we will have a conversation like this and UNA will be shut down. At some point, the organization will be shut down. There was a non-profit organization, the Trump Foundation. It was shut down when Donald Trump was actually the US president. If you violate the laws of this land, you're not above the law. UNA cannot operate above the law. The government of Uganda cannot send dark money into UNA. It cannot. If it continues to do that, these are the kind of things that kind of strain the relationship between the two countries. It's going to be a matter of time before the law catches up with some of this money, because it's money laundering and it's illegal. So you cannot, as an officer, say, oh, I don't see any problem with Uganda sponsoring your candidate, NUP sponsoring your candidate, NRM sponsoring your candidate. There is a problem. First of all, the constitution under which the UNA is registered, the articles of incorporation that they handed over, stop them from doing that. They cannot do that. So don't advise them that it's okay, they can do that. You don't see any problem with that. They do. They are violating American law. And that will continue to cause strife in our community, because some of us want to be law-abiding and some of you don't. That's why I'm asking. It's, again, I'm not criticizing you. It's not your fault. If you don't know, you don't know. I don't expect that you know everything. I don't know everything either. But I'm just saying, our constitution right now, as it is in UNA, and even the new one that we were trying to amend, to make amendments to, does not allow political activity. It does not. People can wear their NUP hats, they can wear their NRM t-shirts, but they cannot be funded by a political entity from another country. That is illegal under federal law and under the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where UNA is registered. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Sorry, I got into some technical issues today. It's threatening terrain, so when that happens here, it's a different story. Power starts disappearing and everything in between. Internet also gets a problem. But I'm back now. Albert, you bring out very interesting issues there, but I think I missed where the ambassador was reacting to some of the issues. But I think you can proceed, and then I pick up from there, Miriam.
So, and I also want to respond to what the ambassador said. He's busy cheering that despite our differences, despite the disorganization in the Ugandan diaspora communities, the remittances keep coming, and he's throwing around the numbers. The $1 billion annual in income in remittances that Uganda government gets from diaspora community. Mr. Ambassador, why can't the Uganda government at least put 5% of that money into funding the institutions that serve the diaspora community? They say that you can't milk a cow you don't feed. You are busy cheering, reaping from the diaspora community where you don't want to sow. Why don't you at least get a portion of all that money and invest in embassies? Like Albert said, the US embassy currently doesn't have the ambassador because of funding. Why can't you improve the institutions at the embassy, maybe put there the investment vehicle that would help the Ugandan community invest in diaspora, that maybe might market the Ugandan economy to the Americans or any other country, the foreigners who would want to invest in the country? Why don't you get a small portion of the remittances and help the diaspora community resolve the crisis they have, like when they invest in purchasing property back home and they lose all that money to swindlers, when they cannot process their passports because the communication and the embassy staff have obstacles. We so far have very few embassies which process the passport information, around like 9 in the whole world. I mean, how many other people are stranded in other countries which can't access embassy services because of lack of funding? So there is a lot of dishonest, like the Ugandan community, the Ugandan government is more interested, looks at the diaspora like a cash cow, not even people. They don't consider them like a constituency which need the services from the state. And I think in your submissions, even when you are saying that the NRM government has Albert said that it's illegal, but even if it was legal, can we separate the state from the party? The state is a different entity from NRM party. For instance, if the Uganda government is sending a delegation to UNAA convention or UK convention or wherever, can we try to separate people who have come for party politicking and from the people who have come to provide services from the state, or who have come to listen to the people so that they can convey the message back to the government? So the state can continue to serve people from different party affiliations, but instead of, making everything partisan and making the NRM party become the Uganda government. That's where we get lost, and maybe that's why Lynn was asking that, are we patriotic? Yes, we are patriotic, but what is Uganda now? Is it NRM party? Is it a country? Is it a party organ? What is it? Is it a government? Is it supposed to serve all Ugandans, or just people of a particular type and work and political belief? So that's why you see, like, when the majority, by the way, Ambassador, majority diaspora people are not NRM, whether it's in USA or in UAE. And that could be one of the reasons people feel there is a need for change. But even if we stay with NRM government, I think these smaller changes can be made from if anybody puts in an effort. For instance, the person talked about Walusimbi or whoever. What are his credentials? Is he the person really informed enough to be the liaison or the marketing agent of Uganda government to diaspora. For instance, today the African Americans, the people in diaspora from the Caribbean, from everywhere, the people of African descent are trying so hard to invest back in Africa, to go back to Africa, and other states have set up instruments. If you go to Zambia, if you go to South Africa, they have even set land aside for people of African descent who want to go back home, who want to invest back home, who want to give back home, who want to resettle back home. And there is like a minimum amount. Say, for instance, I'm quoting a case of like South Africa. I think they say anybody with something between $500,000 or two can be given like citizenship and the land to invest, and you can construct a house. But that is another way of attracting investment to your country. What has Uganda done to attract people from diaspora? And like Albert said, we are now different people. For instance, I could be Miriam, but I could be married to a European or an American or whatever. So my husband or my husband's relatives, they are not Ugandan, but they are somehow affiliated to Uganda. So when Uganda is saying, oh, you are sending remittances and they are interfering in NRM politicking everywhere, they are not considering the nature of the diaspora community we have, the hybrid nature. Who are the people? Can you try to separate that in your mind? And then that's when you will be able to see that NRM politicking in, say, a UNAA convention is so wrong, because you are alienating so many people who don't relate to those partisan politics of Uganda. They are attached to Uganda, but in a different kind of way. And their relationship is so different from that voter partisan kind of thing. So if the government of Uganda can take time to try to study what the diaspora community is, if they don't do that, I think they will not be able to harness the resources that diaspora has to offer in investing in Uganda and developing the Ugandan country. And again, I also want to raise this. I hope the ambassador can pass on the information. Sometime back, we hosted the Minister of Foreign Affairs staff here, and then they said that they are registering, trying to create like a database of professionals in diaspora who can contribute information, maybe skills to the community back home. For instance, if you register like the medical researchers, the pharmacists, and then if there is a case like a COVID outbreak, you don't need to hire other professionals from China or wherever to do research in Uganda. You can do research now on computers, and this community can be able to share information with the medical community back in Uganda. But how do we harness such skills if we are not organized, or if we don't even know what we are looking for? So all those challenges, Ambassador, I think if that's why I'm saying the Ugandan community is more developed than the government back home, and that's the big disparity. Like there is like a misunderstanding. Like you don't know what you are supposed to be doing, and with all due respect to that, the people you set up. We recently saw the spectacle of an investor in Kampala who was supposed to have come from USA by the so-called Walusimbi and group. I mean, everybody saw how much of a fraud that was, and then there was like a viral tweet going on where someone from the information sector of the government, Duncan Abigaba, when he said that diaspora community are nothing, they are just sweepers or something, that they have nothing special to contribute to the country. If you have such a people in positions of responsibilities, what do you expect to get? I mean, you saw what you reap what you sow. So if you sow a weed, that's what you're gonna reap. And with the due respect, the ambassador, please, I think you should start looking at Ugandans not in the political lenses of like, oh, I have so many new members in UAE, and try to look at them as Ugandans and try to avoid those political differences. Because of the political differences, we could be emotionally attached to our politics back home. But here they don't help us at all, and we don't even care where they exist. Or today, when I want to call the embassy, I don't first think about NRM. I want the embassy. I want a service from the embassy. So we might be emotionally attached, but the real issues have nothing to do with politics back home.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for that. Ambassador, and Albert has stepped away. He says he had prior engagements, but now I think we need to focus on how best we can deal with the issues, because there are very many issues. And I was reading a report, and they were saying that Uganda, I think, there was a study that was done. Uganda is among it highlights the fact that Uganda is among let me see quickly. It has the highest, one of the many countries that have the highest remittances coming in from the diaspora. We have Nigeria, we have Ghana, we have on the continent, I mean. And so we need to really start focusing on ways we can improve and make this make the Uganda diaspora really work for us as a country and improve development. So I want us to look at solutions. Really, we cannot we have very many problems. I was seeing a tweet here. Actually, it was a Facebook post by somebody, and they were asking why we are displaying shots of the government and not what the country has. It is very disturbing. I want to quickly read this Facebook post by somebody concerned about what was going on at these conventions, and they're saying that marketing the regime in your taxes at work. And they say, this is Daniel Kauma, he says, marketing the regime instead of our country. Instead of the Ghana government coming to the diaspora to promote investment opportunities, markets for our farmers, tourism, foreign direct investment and protections of migrant workers, they rather use taxpayers' money to fly abroad and promote a 37-year-old regime at a UNAA convention. I pity the founders of this diaspora association. This is a comment that was, shared on social media. Ambassador, with all these that you've had from Miriam, you've had from Albert, and the media out there, whatever it is that they bring on, it is really negative. Very negative. How do we change the look of things?
Of course, I just want to say that I'm part and parcel of the diaspora because I live outside my country, and I'm part of those that remit, by the way. I'm part of those who remit, and I know what happens. As far as those remittances are concerned. Number two is that, yes, we have a diaspora. For instance, in China, we had a diaspora of about in the region of 35,000, 50,000, and they were also remitting really substantial amounts of money. In the UAE, Ugandans are estimated to be in the region of 100,000. And we have 7 emirates, of which Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Fujairah, and so many others, and quite a couple of others, part and parcel of the UAE. And all of these, of course, are involved in remitting substantial amounts of money. And as I said, in the region of over 200 million US dollars. That's a plus for the economy. And of course, Lynn, you touched on the countries in Africa that top the list in as far as remittances are concerned. Of course, in terms of diaspora remittances to those respective countries, Uganda is number 3 actually. After Nigeria and another one, Uganda is number 3 in terms of remittances. We even, for instance, beat Kenya in a number of countries. Here in the UAE, we beat Kenya in terms when it comes to what Ugandans remit to back home. I also want to say that the diaspora is such a unique, to borrow the word, the term of Albert, they are unique in whichever country you go. Here, in the US, London, we have quite a number of other capitals on the globe. These are unique communities. Therefore, their challenges definitely are going to be different from country to country. But I also want to say that yes, because I think Miriam, my sister, the sister who follows me, I've always told her, is called Miriam, and I see in you, a sister of mine, that let's not be terribly negative about, yes, we can disagree politically or the way how things are done in these diasporas, but I think it suffices to say that we need to be as positive as possible when it comes to these interactions between our country and the diaspora communities. And we don't have to behave like zombies, as I've said before, that we just agree with each other. For me, communities where I've been and everybody agrees with what is going on, I don't belong. I just leave and go to another one. I don't do so. So it is normal to disagree, especially politically, because the nature of politics is that it is divisive wherever you go. Miriam, where you are in the US, the Republicans and the Democrats are watching what's happening in that country. Plenty of divisive comments, divisionism, and so on and so forth. But I also want to say that when it comes to these diaspora communities, there are many people who are positive about, and unfortunately, those silent majorities are the ones who don't talk. For us, we are noisemakers. Me and Miriam, my sister, we will always talk about these things. But there are so many others who remit money back home. And when it comes to these remittances, because Miriam, my sister, was talking about why the government in Uganda does not actually recoup the monies which are sent from the diaspora communities into embassies. By the way, it doesn't work that way. Most of the money that is sent by people in the diaspora, including myself, actually are sent to families or personal projects, putting up buildings and other projects, investments, and so on and so forth. The other day I was telling my children that why don't I open for you a saloon so that you can get some 20,000 per day from that saloon? And we are still debating that one. The moment they agree, I am going to invest in a saloon, a unisex one, if you want, or is it unigender if you want, where these children of mine can probably make some little bit of money. So these monies, in a majority of cases, the monies which are sent by diaspora are actually not sent to the government directly. These monies are sent either for purposes of doing projects or to our respective families. And therefore, the government cannot then get hold of these remittances and then put them back to the missions. In any case, even if it were to do that, in a sense, yes, it is, because when we send these remittances, they're a little bit taxed. There are some tax revenues that accrue as a result of the remittances that we make. And therefore, the government cannot get hold of the entire remittance, like my sister Miriam sends back to Uganda, maybe to her family or a family project, and get hold of it and then say this must go back to. No, it doesn't happen that way. Of course, money many times is sent through either MTN or I don't know what other service providers are through which these monies are sent. It taxes them. Some little bit of that money, of course, goes into the national coffers. Now, I said much earlier that the diaspora is a vehicle, a very wonderful vehicle, in as far as attracting investment. And I recalled, and I want to repeat, that during the Expo 2020 in Dubai, the diplomatic missions, the consulate and the liaison office, by then it wasn't a consulate yet, and the embassy worked closely with the diaspora in order to attract that level of investment that I talked about much earlier, of over $4 billion US coming from the UAE and going back to Uganda. And so the diaspora is very instrumental in that way. It is a vehicle, very useful vehicle, that the government and us as diplomatic missions can use in order to attract foreign direct investment from our respective host countries where these diplomatic missions are. And I think it must have been Albert who was talking about why the NRM doesn't open its own organizations, for instance, in the Americas, in Europe, and so on and so forth. And I want to say that actually I've seen the NRM open chapters in the Americas. I saw them, for instance, a couple of weeks ago, opening a chapter in London, in the Scandinavian countries. Yes, that is ongoing. Every political party is free to do that thing. And in a sense, that one definitely is something that speaks volumes about how democratic any society or community should be. Now, Albert has left because he was talking about why the NRM government sponsors organizations. I think when I used the word sponsoring, because sponsoring can take, or sponsorship can take a number of dimensions. It can be in the form of money, it can be in the form of really working with you in order to attain or achieve an objective. I didn't specifically mean that the government of Uganda, the NRM government, the administration, gets hold of money and then it sends to these diaspora organizations abroad. I didn't say that. And because it becomes a little bit funny if somebody only limited this is sponsorship to money. Abe Walusimbi, I think my sister Miriam was talking about him, that who is this, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Abe Walusimbi was part of you in the UNAA. Miriam, I don't know whether by that time you were in the US, he was part of the UNAA. And then he came back to Uganda. As to whether you disagreed with him or disagree with him, that is a totally different idea. But the fact of the matter is that he's part and parcel of the infrastructure that the government has put in place in order to mobilize the diaspora in various countries and regions so that they take part in the development of the country. And I just want to believe that everybody who comes or steps forward and wants to be part of this process of ensuring that we attract FDIs to our country is allowed the space. And Abe Walusimbi is that kind of person who I have known for a little bit of time, and he has joined this very effort to ensure that we attract as much FDIs in our country. I think it must have been Albert that the NRM is meddling in UNAA, almost suggesting to a point of absurdity. Well, you people who live in the Americas, you have the capacity to stop it if it is meddling up to a point where you think that that intervention has become an absurdity. Otherwise, you can't only condemn the NRM. And I think I take you back to the beginning of this conversation where I said that I have seen all the political parties actually getting involved in the politics of UNAA, whether you like it or not. Political parties have been part and parcel of the politicking that happens in the UNAA. And so Albert, when he condemns the NRM of getting involved in the UNAA, so he should, even to the rest of the political persuasions that we have in Uganda, because I've seen all of them actually being a part and parcel of UNAA conventions. Whenever UNAA conventions, unfortunately I've been part of them since 2010, 2011, all the political parties actually are present on the ground, taking a part, especially when it comes to that session that talks about politics, and also when it comes to elections of the leadership of the UNAA. I've seen all the political positions in the country taking part in these things. And so when we condemn anybody, we should condemn all that take part in those political processes of the UNAA. And therefore, in my view, I think it is not fair to only talk about the NRM and you leave out the rest. Because I've seen NT, Mugisha has been, for instance, when we went to Dallas, he was there. I've seen the FDC, basically were together in Boston, UNAA convention, and quite a number of others. Even I think Mama Mbabazi was in Dallas when we had that convention, and quite a number of others. The DPs have always been there. The CPs, when Jamus Ken was still very vibrant in the politics of the country, I saw him a number of times attending the UNAA conventions. And therefore, unless we agree that political parties should stop taking part or actually meddling, or is it influencing the political, the electoral processes of the UNAA and in the rest of the diasporas, if they can adopt constitutions that bar anybody from bringing their political colors into the political processes of the diaspora. If we can agree on that one, for me, I don't have a problem. But for as long as we're not agreed on that, we will continue to see people from all sorts of political persuasions coming to take part in the political processes of the diaspora conventions, not only the UNAA, but also the rest of them in the Scandinavian countries, in Europe, and also in the African countries. Thank you very much, Lynn.
All right, Ambassador, thank you very much for that. I still want us to find solutions. What can we do? Miriam, what can we do? Ambassador is telling us everything, of course, that has happened, what is happening, and is still giving us hope. But I think there's so much more that we need to do in regards, especially the diaspora organizations, when they come together. Why don't they do something that is really, really concrete? And we stop having this back and forth every other time. They are pointing fingers at government is pointing fingers at the diaspora. Even the organizations that they have as diaspora are still wanting. So what are we missing?
Yeah, Lynn, you're right. I mean, we should stop. If we feel something is wrong, we should come in and correct it. But before I proceed, Ambassador, I think Albert was talking about sponsoring the candidates, which is against the law. The non-profits organizations in USA are not supposed to be interfered in with, mixed in with the partisan politics, and I think that's against the law. Maybe the concerned people should go to court, but we will end up having our organization disbanded. UNAA is still, whether with political interference or not, is still one of those prominent organizations that has so far withstood the challenges of time and has managed to unite Ugandans in North America for a long time. So, and it's an avenue for socializing, for liaising with the government agencies, the business institutions and all that. So we don't want to miss the platform. So if you can stop a bad habit, why not? That aside, then yes, we can find solutions, but how? That's why the government needs to step back, because it has really stepped in so much that it has pushed so many people out of the organization. That's why you saw recently the NUP convention in Los Angeles. Usually, like the ambassador said, we would have different political parties. There would be like a session where the different political party leaders would meet their own people in different sections, like he said. Kizza Besigye would go there, Muchamutu would go there, but still people would be united under one umbrella. But today what we see is a divisions and the weakening of the UNAA, because the government has really stepped in so strong, not the Ugandan government, but NRM party, and it's somehow shaking the foundations of the organization, which wouldn't be good in the interest of Uganda as a government and the nation, and also for the people from the diaspora. So Ambassador, please take note of that. The correction is what is against the law, and again, what is against the interest of all of us as Ugandans living in diaspora, and again, the government, because the UNAA Convention is a vehicle for investment and interaction of the Ugandan community to diaspora at so many different levels. So back to Mr. Walusimbi, I wouldn't want much to make this about his person and his name. We don't have to throw it around, but I was giving it as an example of, I mean, if Albert said, what you value, you measure. If we can go back and measure ever since those people have been in offices, what have they achieved so far? Yes, it's one thing to have interest as an individual. For instance, I could be interested in promoting tourism as Miriam, but when it comes to government offices, when it comes to government institutions, they should be manned by competent people, and those people should be facilitated well enough to do the work they are supposed to do, to carry out their mandate. Basically, that is my point. Are the people in those offices, those desks that are scattered all over, to cater for the diaspora community, are they competent enough? Are they informed enough? Are they facilitated enough to carry out their mandate? So that's what we are not seeing. We are seeing a lot of incompetence, lack of funding, and all that. It's a real big shame to see like a big embassy of Uganda in the United States. You see, United States is 54 states in one. And so many people that they don't even have an ambassador so many months later, even after appointment. So you can imagine now all the files on the desk which are not attended to because there is no ambassador, and the reason is lack of funding. Even when you can, even taking out like one MP from the parliament is enough to fund the embassy in Washington, D.C. And Uganda, where you see the money going, that's where their interest is. That's why I was saying that the Uganda government is so detached with the interest of Ugandans. Because the money is there, yes, but where is it? It's funding a bloating parliament, a bloating government. We have so many ministers that others don't even know what they are supposed to do. The RDCs, the military officers everywhere, convoys, a lot of all that, and unnecessary paraphernalia that is so political, that has nothing to do with the development. And that's a waste, and that shows that the Ugandan government, so far the regime, maybe I should call it the NRM regime, is so much interested in propagating itself in power than serving the interests of Ugandans, especially the Ugandans in diaspora. Yes, the remittances are coming back. Mr. Ambassador, if you look at the Ugandan budget, the Minister of Finance projects that a certain percentage of Ugandan income is going to come from the remittances. That's income. And that's how the government income comes in. Whether you are selling coffee, it goes into your pocket, but there is a way the government benefits from that income. And there is a way it spills over to the national basket, to the national coffers. So that income is already there and it's accounted for, whether you get it from tax, direct tax, and indirect tax. There are so many channels from the foreign exchange. There are so many channels which that money gets back into the national coffers. But yes, it's there. It's even in the budget, and it's captured, and it's part of the national income. So that money, the only thing you need to do, which is lacking, is the political will. Get a percentage of that, whether it's 1 billion, whether it's 1 million, get 5% of that and say you are investing back to where that money is coming from. It's like you're having a plantation or you are having a cow. That cow is bringing 5 liters back home, but you don't want to feed it. You know it's going to starve tomorrow and maybe you're going to lose it. But maybe they are taking the Ugandan diaspora for granted, that you feel like you don't want to feed it, and you think that whether you feed them or not, they would still bring money back home. But that would shock you. What will shock you is today Ugandans have started, say, investing in stable economies like Kenya, where their money can be well accounted for. The investment is predictable and the political environment is stable. People are investing in stocks. People are investing in tourism projects in any other parts of the world instead of investing back in Uganda. So you are losing out. Whatever you see maybe could even be much bigger if you are investing in attracting more investments back home than just waiting for whatever spills over into your basket. So all those are gaps, which I think we were talking about solutions, but those are things which are doable. They are not impossible, whether it's an NRM regime, whether it's a next regime coming on. Those are simple things which just need twerking here and there and then fixing and the things get going. But there is a lack of political will, and I don't know what I can propose as a solution. Lynn, your guess is as good as mine. How do we change the political will of NRM regime in Kampala to see that it invests in diaspora community?
Really, I know, I mean, Miriam is very close with the NRM administration, but doesn't matter. For me, I take it as a natural thing that people shouldn't always agree. When they continuously agree, like I said before, in a group, you find everybody saying yes, yes, then you know you're headed for trouble. You're headed for trouble because the future becomes terribly unknown. And there is nobody who's going to warn you whether you're falling off the cliff or not. Everybody just say yes, 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 yes. We have a saying in Uganda that Nantabulirwa Yasamalya Bumba, because this king, one of the past kings of Uganda, was warned because he wanted to go and quell a rebellion that had broken out in the Sessa Islands. But at that time, of course, people were not making wooden boats. So he did one in clay. And he was told that, look, this thing is going to dissolve in water. The man didn't bother. So eventually he went with his canoe that was made out of clay, and the thing, no sooner had it stepped in the water, had it been taken into the water, then it broke down. So definitely for me, Miriam, you're doing a very good job because you're supposed to put the government on its tenterhooks so that he can do the best job. You are doing something that is very constructive for as long as you remain reasonable. Because if you don't remain reasonable, then we will decide to become, very destructive. We don't even listen to each other. But for as long as we can still listen to us, to each other. And I want to believe that all of us who are panelists on this forum have the will to listen to each other. For me, that one is a plus. Now, secondly, because the question, Lynn, you are asking is what should we do? Well, the answer is as good as mine, is as good as yours as mine. What can we do? Because it takes two to tango. The people who are in the diaspora, because people will always disagree, but how do you manage? How do you manage the disagreement? For me, that's where I think the answer lies. Because the differences definitely are going to be there. Even in heaven, there were differences. That's why Satan was thrown out. Even Jesus, when he had his 12 disciples, one of them, Judas Iscariot, did those kinds of things, which I don't want to go through. And eventually, the rest is history, because Jesus, of course, was hanged, was put on the cross, was crucified. So there will always be disagreement. But how do you handle disagreements? For me, that's where I think the answer to the question that, Lynn, you are asking should come from. One of them is that, yes, you know, people, if you think that you should change the course of the ship, then you do it, because the means to do so are in your hands. They are in your courts. When it comes to elections, how are you going to elect? Are you electing for purposes of, on basing? Are you carrying out those elections basing on partisan politics? Are you going to elect somebody basing on just gender? Are you going to elect somebody, or that actually, because it's usually a team, are you going to elect somebody who is actually going to serve our country, your community, first of all, in the US, in the Americas, and also the country, our country? So really, there are so many ways how you can look at this thing. Because, again, I can give you an example. I'm sure, Miriam, since you live in the US, you have read about Abraham Lincoln, one of the greatest statesmen of the US, how he brought together all of those people who had opposed him for the presidency, and he formed a team, a formidable team that served that country to the extent that up to now, people are still praising him, in spite of the fact that there were so many divisions in the US based on slavery and all those kinds of things. So how do you elect? Why don't you work towards a situation where you bring a team that actually can unite you? Yeah, it will be a very good example, because you see, UNAA, you are positioned very well, because everybody talks about UNAA. There are so many diaspora communities all over the place. In fact, the one of East Africa is the one which sends most, and if this is for the benefit of Miriam, because you can even check with the Uganda Investment Authority. The diaspora community that sends most the remittances back home is actually the one which lives in East Africa, including Kenya, which you mentioned, that there are Ugandans who are investing in Kenya, which to me, I don't see a problem, because people should be free to move their capital to a country where they think they can make a profit. But there are also so many global nationals that are moving to Uganda for investment. For instance, I will tell you something. When I was still in China, there were so many other there were so many investors that came from that country, because quite a number of other countries in the region, and I don't want to name names, had actually imposed restrictions on how somebody should invest in those respective countries in the East African region, including making sure that when you invest, you actually also get a sponsor, a national sponsor, somebody from that country, so that you now do this thing jointly. And those countries objected to that, and they introduced a new pieces of legislation that actually barred that kind of investment. And so many of these Chinese investors left to those countries. I'm not going to name them, and they came to Uganda. So moving capital is normal. You can move it anywhere. The Ugandans can take it to Kenya. They can take it to Tanzania, just like probably Kenyans can bring it to Uganda or any other place. But even if Ugandans are moving their capital out of Uganda and actually investing it in Kenya, it doesn't matter, because eventually Ugandans will feel obligated to make sure that they remit some of those profits or their entire income back to the country. The profits they make definitely will be recouped back to the country. For me, I don't see a problem in that one, because it's a plus again to the economy that the government can allow you to move your capital anywhere you want. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good point. So, Miriam, I don't see a problem. Why? I don't see a problem in Ugandans actually moving their capital to Kenya. Now, why can't the government? I think Miriam raised something to the effect that why can't the government invest adequately in these diplomatic missions that it has abroad? Yes, it has been investing. I can assure you that the government of Uganda, for instance, invested a lot in the UAE efforts that we did to make sure that we attract the FDIs that we did. And we were able to cover quite a number of things. And in the process, we also developed and opened a consulate in Dubai, because most of the Ugandans who live in the UAE are actually residents and also people who work in Dubai. So in the process, there are quite a number of things that we achieved, apart from the over $4 billion that was attracted from the UAE back to Uganda. We also got quite a number of other things, achieved a number of other things. One of them is that Uganda Airlines began flying to Dubai. We also have now Air Arabia flying from Sharjah to Uganda, and quite a number of other things which I don't have, in the interest of time, which I don't have to mention here. But of course, this support from government has been affected by the pandemic. You and I know that almost for 2 years we were under lockdown, and it became extremely difficult for the cash flow to remain as constant as it were. And therefore, the government over a period of time did not have enough resources. So that is the kind of situation we are going through. But I'm happy to note that right now, as we speak, I hear that the fuel prices are now going down. You remember how the Ukraine conflict affected us. So the fuel, it's because of the interventions of government, definitely. I don't know whether Miriam is going to agree with that. But the fuel prices are going down in Uganda from what the reports I'm getting. The pandemic is over, and we believe that sooner than later, the economy of Uganda is going to perform. It's going to be on top of the game. Now, Miriam, of course, you are choosing the NRM. I wanted to restrict myself to the discussion that we're having at the moment without mentioning the NRM. But Miriam, you keep bringing it. And so when you do, I'm obligated actually to respond. That the NRM is preoccupied with propagating itself so that it remains within power. I have not seen a political party in the whole of my political life that doesn't want to keep the power for as long as it can. I have not seen that kind of government, because even where you are, Miriam, you know, the Democrats are trying as much as possible. I have seen, for instance, the Democrats sponsoring quite a number of bills, increasing expenditure, and as far as public services are concerned, and all these kinds of things. You are there, you know what I'm talking about, for purposes of ensuring that they continue to keep the government in the US. So I've not seen a government that does not work towards ensuring that it keeps government for as long as it can. So when the NRM does so, it's not doing something that is out of the ordinary. It is only doing something that is actually traditional, something that has been there for a very long time. So basically, that's what I want to tell him, that look, okay, if UNA thinks that the current system that we have is not working well, it is not uniting Ugandans who live in the Americas, it is not probably even mobilizing the resources, or is it remittances and investment levels to flow into the country? There are quite a couple of things that they need to do. Probably they need to do something in the direction that the diaspora is mobilized to a level where it can really attract as much of the FDIs into Uganda as much as possible. But quite a couple of things, of course. One of them, Miriam, you have to look at the membership of your diaspora. I've been associated with it, and I'm a very good political scientist. I've studied it, and I have my own conclusions. Probably we'll talk about those later. But I think you have to look at the membership, because much as you condemn the NRM for coming to influence whatever comes out of the UNA, you should also do what the Baganda call mwekube mchifuba. You, as people who are in diaspora, are you doing it? Are you doing things rightly? Are you doing things rightly? How can you do things better? I think those are the fundamental questions that we need to ask, and make sure that we perfect the act so that the UNA membership is united as much as possible. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that. And Miriam, as we wind up, we have a few minutes at the top of the hour, so we can call it a show. Your reactions to what the ambassador said, and of course, your parting shots.
Yeah, the ambassador has continuously kept on referring to remittances. I think that the relationship of having the conventions and the meetings and the institutions working, why don't we look at, for instance, marketing Ugandan products abroad? These institutions, if say you had an investment desk at the embassy, and its biggest role would be marketing, say, Ugandan coffee, Ugandan products to American economy, that would be so beneficial to the country, and maybe they would even value that. They would appreciate the diaspora community much better than what we are seeing. Today, the biggest challenge is that, like Albert saying, you are looking at the diaspora for its money, not any other resources that they can provide, any other services like skills transfer. For instance, Ambassador, since you were based in China, you know so well how the Asian tiger economies developed. They developed basically from skills transfer. They would get their trained people from the diaspora to come back home and apply those skills to the economies back home. And that's how they industrialized. That's how they were able to attract investments in terms of economic production and industry capacity building. So those are the things we are missing out. Don't look at the diaspora community for just a few dollars they're sending back home, but what can we get from them? The resources, the skills, even the relationship. Like if you say the Ugandan community is, for instance, here we have like so many festivals, like Irish festival, whatever. But if you go to one of those festivals and you see how the Irish people live, you feel attracted to go and visit the Irish country. So if we have like a convention which really showcases Uganda instead of showcasing NRM party, we would even attract tourists. We would attract people who would invest in Uganda, not just as FDIs, but as in even in its social, like improving our social image. People who would look at Uganda as a country which has developed, which is, well, the image of Africa in most of these Western cultures, nations, the people, not the governments. Most Western people think Africa is still underdeveloped and all that. So how do we showcase Uganda much better if we are so taken up by the partisan politics? All we are promoting is the NRM t-shirts instead of, say, promoting our processed coffee, our gold, and all that stuff which we have back home. So in conclusion, Lynn, I think we still need to have these discussions, but there is one thing the ambassador didn't address, and the question was hanging, and was, how do we improve the Ugandan services to the diaspora community? How do we make sure we put competent people in those positions? How do we ensure that those people are facilitated? Ambassador, you kept avoiding that question. And that's the key issue here. That's what we are missing. And without that, nothing will be done back here. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Ambassador, do you have any parting shots?
Only two, Lynn. Only two responses. And very quickly, because Lynn is, Miriam is talking about competent people being put in positions of responsibility to serve. How I wish you could really describe how these people should look like. How should they look like? What competences? What competences should they have?
People who are informed about. For instance, you can't put a person to work in UAE embassy who doesn't even have an idea what the needs of UAE Ugandans in that community need. And what do you expect to get from that?
No, my sister Miriam, because before somebody is posted to these diplomatic missions, and I remember before I left for these two capitals, we are taken through an induction course to understand the country, the aspirations, the laws, and so on and so forth. The diaspora communities, and so on. So we are taken through those induction courses so that we appreciate what they expect. But of course, the aspirations are
results.
but of course, the aspirations are not they are not rocket science. They are not rocket science, because anybody, even if you need to go to school to the level of probably diplomacy, you can understand, for as long as your brain is strong enough, you can understand what the diaspora communities actually need. And that's why we offer consular support, because you are going to find so many Ugandans in problems, for instance, especially those who go against the law in these host countries. You must support them in terms of offering them consular guidance and all these kinds of things. So that's extremely important as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, you don't expect a diplomatic mission to look for jobs for these people, like some people have always thought. All we can do is to guide you. When you come to that, I'm happy that the chapter that we opened in Dubai 2 weeks ago, it has an executive committee. One of the responsibilities of that committee is going to be to teach Ugandans in this country how, first of all, to obey the laws of this country, and secondly, how to cope with the situation in this country. Those are the kinds of things that we can do. At least that's one of the things which I'm doing in the UAE, and which we are doing together with the diaspora here. And I'm happy that we're doing that together with the executive of the diaspora here. Now, of course, Miriam, you are talking about technological transfer. Technology transfer is part and parcel of our responsibility as diplomatic missions. We try as much as possible to attract technology transfer, and it is being done. I don't have the figures now, but should you want, we can have those figures at our next discussion in this forum, so that we can appreciate what has been done in as far as technological transfer is concerned. Of course, the equipment which goes and the scholarships that we get. Russia, for instance, gives us 40 scholarships per year. China gives us, I think, almost 200. And that's part of the technology. Once these people have finished those university courses, they come back on the ground and they are supposed to implement these things. As to whether they will find the jobs on the ground, probably that is the question with that. Because for me, I look at these things in real terms, and I don't want to pretend that all is rosy. So do these people, after that, getting that training, do they get the jobs that they deserve after they've been trained? Quite a number of them, yes, get. I remember when President Yoweri Museveni, for instance, took quite a number of young Ugandans to Norway to study, to understudy, or is it to study, both bachelor's degree and also master's degree, and some of them have actually done PhDs in the oil industry. And part of the beneficiaries, I don't want to name names, let me leave it at that. There are quite a number of these people who have come back and they're now participating in the oil industry that is being developed in the country, in Uganda. So this is part of our responsibility as diplomatic missions to ensure that there is that technology transfer. How do we attract, for instance, scholarships? How do we transfer appropriate technology? When I was still in China, we tried as much as possible to attract appropriate technology from China to Uganda. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your time. Thank you, Miriam, as well, for your time. And thanks to Albert, who was with us earlier. I hope we can continue having these conversations, because I was listening in, and other countries are really doing well with the diaspora community. And I think it's about time Uganda also, did something about that diaspora community. We can do so much for this country's development. Thank you very much. I'll catch you again next time. Do have a lovely weekend.